Emily woke up early as always. Her small apartment was cold, and the rent bill on her table reminded her of the pressure she was under. She sighed but got up quickly. Worrying wouldn't help, working would. By 6 a.m., Emily was at Joe's diner, tying her apron. The diner was already busy. People came in for coffee, breakfast, or just to escape the rain outside. Emily worked fast, carrying plates, filling cups, and smiling even when customers were rude. Her boss, Mr. Grayson, watched her closely. He was strict and always angry. "Don't slow down, Emily," he snapped. "You're here to work, not chat." Emily nodded and kept moving. She didn't argue, it wasn't worth it. Around 8 a.m., a man walked in. He stood out. His suit was clean and expensive, unlike the messy clothes most customers wore. He looked around nervously before sitting in Emily's section. "Can I get you something?" Emily asked with a polite smile. "Just coffee, for now," he said quietly. Emily noticed his hands trembling slightly as he opened his laptop. Something about him felt strange. Why was he so nervous? And why did he choose this small diner? She didn't know it yet, but helping this man would change her life forever. The man sipped his coffee slowly, typing furiously on his laptop. Emily kept an eye on him as she worked. He seemed out of place, too polished, too quiet. Most customers chatted or complained, but he stayed focused, his brow furrowed like he was solving a big problem. Then it happened. His phone rang, and he answered quickly. "Yes, I'm looking at the numbers now," he said, glancing at some papers spread across the table. Suddenly, his phone beeped, low battery. Emily saw the panic flash in his eyes. Without thinking, she stepped forward. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly. "You can use my notepad if you need to write something down." He looked up, surprised. "Thank you," he said, taking the notepad. "This helps a lot." As the morning went on, Emily noticed little things about him. He spilled water on his papers once, and she rushed over with napkins to help dry them. When his coffee cup was empty, she refilled it without being asked. Each time, he gave her a small nod of thanks, his expression softening. But Emily didn't realize that Mr. Grayson was watching. "You're spending too much time on that one table," he hissed when Emily passed the counter. "Stop wasting time and focus on your other customers." Emily nodded nervously. She tried to balance everything. Her other tables, the orders, and helping the man, but it felt impossible. Still, she couldn't ignore him when he needed something. There was something about him that made her want to help, even if it meant risking trouble. By noon, the diner slowed down. The man closed his laptop and stood up. "Thank you for everything," he said to Emily, handing her a generous tip. "You've been very kind." Emily smiled. "It's my job, sir. I'm glad I could help." But as he walked out the door, Mr. Grayson stormed over. His face was red with anger. "What was that?" he shouted. "You ignored half your tables to babysit one customer. You're fired, Emily. Get out." Emily froze, her heart sinking. Fired? Over this? She wanted to argue, to explain, but the words wouldn't come. Grabbing her bag, she left the diner, tears streaming down her face. She didn't know it yet, but the man she helped wasn't just any customer, and he wasn't done with her story. Emily walked home in a daze, the weight of her firing pressing down on her chest. The streets were crowded, but she felt completely alone. How could this happen? All she'd done was try to help someone. Wasn't that what being a good waitress meant? When she reached her apartment, she collapsed onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. Her mind raced with questions. What would she do now? How would she pay rent? The diner job had been her lifeline, and without it, she felt lost. Her phone buzzed on the table. A text from her best friend, Lisa. "Hey, how's work?" Emily stared at the screen, tears welling up again. She didn't have the energy to explain everything, so she typed back simply, "I got fired today." Seconds later, Lisa called. "What? Why?" Emily sighed, recounting the morning's events. The mysterious man, the spilled papers, the extra help she'd given him. "Mr. Grayson said I broke the rules by focusing too much on one customer," she finished bitterly. But I was just trying to be nice. Lisa paused. That's ridiculous. You're the hardest worker I know. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. A blessing? Emily snapped, her frustration bubbling over. How is losing my job a blessing? I can't even afford groceries next week. I don't know, Lisa admitted softly. But something will come along. It always does. Emily wanted to believe her, but doubt clouded her thoughts. She spent the rest of the day lying low, avoiding calls and scrolling through job listings online. Nothing seemed promising. By evening, exhaustion took over, and she fell into a restless sleep. The next morning, there was a knock at her door. Confused, Emily opened it to find a delivery person holding an envelope. "Are you Emily Parker?" he asked. "Yes. This is for you." He handed her the envelope and left before she could ask anything else. Inside was a handwritten note and a business card. Emily's hands trembled as she read the words. "Dear Emily, I hope this message finds you well. My name is Adrian Hartwell. Yesterday, you helped me at the diner when no one else noticed my struggles. Your kindness made a lasting impression on me. Please meet me at the address below tomorrow morning. I'd like to thank you properly. Sincerely, Adrian Hartwell." Emily gasped, recognizing the name instantly. Adrian Hartwell, the billionaire CEO whose face had been all over the news recently. Was this real, or some cruel prank? Her heart pounded as she looked at the business card. It was real. His company logo gleamed on the sleek design. For the first time since being fired, Emily felt a flicker of hope. But uncertainty lingered. Why did Adrian want to see her? And what did he mean by "thank you properly"? She didn't know yet, but deep down, she felt certain that her life was about to change. The next morning, Emily stood outside the address on the card. A towering glass building in the heart of the city. Her hands were clammy, and her mind raced with doubts. What if this was a mistake? What if Adrian Hartwell didn't really mean to thank her? Taking a deep breath, she stepped inside. The lobby was sleek and modern, with polished floors and a reception desk manned by a sharply dressed woman. "I'm here to see Mr. Hartwell," Emily said nervously, clutching the business card like a lifeline. The receptionist nodded and gestured toward an elevator. "He's expecting you. Top floor." As the elevator climbed higher, Emily's heart beat faster. When the doors opened, she found herself in a spacious office suite. At the far end, a man stood gazing out of a floor-to-ceiling window. "Emily," he said, turning around with a warm smile. It was him, the mysterious customer from the diner. "Mr. Hartwell?" she asked hesitantly. "Please call me Adrian," he replied, stepping forward to shake her hand. "Thank you for coming." They sat down, and Adrian began explaining why he'd asked her here. "I was at the diner undercover," he admitted. "I own several businesses, including restaurants, and I visit them occasionally to see how things are run. Yesterday, I wanted to observe the staff, to see who truly cared about their work." Emily frowned. "So, you weren't just a regular customer?" "No," Adrian said with a small laugh. "But that doesn't change the fact that you went above and beyond for me. You noticed my struggles, offered help without hesitation, and treated me with genuine kindness. That's rare these days." Emily blushed, unsure what to say. "I was just doing my job." "It wasn't just your job," Adrian countered firmly. "It was your heart. And that's why I wanted to meet you, to express my gratitude." Then his expression turned serious. "But there's something else. I heard about what happened after I left the diner." Emily stiffened. "You know I got fired?" Adrian nodded, his jaw tightening. "Yes, I spoke with Mr. Grayson earlier today. He justified your dismissal by saying you broke protocol. But let me be clear, your actions didn't deserve punishment. They deserved recognition." Emily blinked, stunned. "Wait, you talked to my boss?" "Yes," Adrian said. "And I have to admit, learning about your situation shocked me. Someone with your dedication and compassion shouldn't face such unfair treatment." He leaned forward, his tone earnest. "That's why I want to offer you a position at my company. Not as a waitress, but as someone who can make a real difference. We're launching new charitable initiatives, and I believe you're exactly the person we need to lead them." Emily's eyes widened. "Me? Led something? I've never done anything like that before." "You don't give yourself enough credit," Adrian said with a smile. "Kindness is leadership. Compassion inspires others. Those qualities are hard to find, and even harder to teach." For a moment, Emily couldn't speak. This was more than she'd ever dreamed possible. But one question lingered. "Why would you do all this for someone like me?" "Because people like you remind me why I started my business in the first place," Adrian replied simply. "To create opportunities for those who deserve them." Tears welled up in Emily's eyes. For the first time in days, she felt seen not just as a worker but as a person. Emily couldn't believe what was happening. One day, she was fired and struggling to make ends meet. The next, she was sitting across from a billionaire who believed in her enough to offer her a life-changing role. It felt surreal, like stepping into someone else's story. "Are you sure about this?" Emily asked hesitantly. "I mean, I've never done anything like leading a team or running projects before." Adrian smiled warmly. "You underestimate yourself. The skills you showed me at the diner, your attention to detail, your ability to connect with people, your problem-solving under pressure, are exactly what we need. Besides," he added with a twinkle in his eye, "everyone starts somewhere." He slid a folder across the table toward her. Inside were details about the new position, a generous salary, benefits, and a clear outline of her responsibilities. She would oversee charitable initiatives aimed at helping underserved communities, providing meals, job training, and mentorship programs. "This is incredible," Emily whispered, flipping through the pages. "But why me? There must be others more qualified." "There are plenty of qualified people," Adrian admitted, "but few have your heart. You understand what it means to struggle, to care deeply about others even when it costs you something. That perspective is invaluable." Emily took a deep breath, letting the words sink in. For so long, she doubted herself, felt invisible, like her efforts didn't matter. But now, sitting here with Adrian, she realized that wasn't true. Her kindness had been noticed. Her hard work hadn't gone unnoticed. "I'll do it," she said finally, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "Thank you for believing in me." Adrian grinned. "The pleasure is mine, Emily. Welcome to the team." Over the next few days, Emily began transitioning into her new role. Adrian introduced her to key members of his staff, who welcomed her warmly. They walked her through the company's goals and helped her settle into her office, a bright, sunlit space with a view of the city skyline. At first, Emily felt out of place. She wasn't used to wearing professional clothes or attending meetings where decisions impacted thousands of lives. But with each passing day, she grew more confident. Her natural empathy and determination shone through, earning respect from colleagues and partners alike. One evening, as she sat at her desk reviewing plans for an upcoming community event, she reflected on how far she'd come. Just weeks ago, she'd been serving coffee at a diner, worried about paying rent. Now, she was leading initiatives that could change lives, including her own. And it all started with one act of kindness. Months passed, and Emily thrived in her new role. The charitable initiatives she led became a beacon of hope for countless families. Food drives fed the hungry, job training programs helped unemployed individuals find work, and mentorship efforts inspired young people to dream bigger than they ever thought possible. But it wasn't just the success of the projects that filled Emily with pride. It was knowing she had found her purpose. Every day, she carried the lessons she'd learned as a waitress into her leadership style. Listen closely, act with kindness, and never underestimate the power of small gestures. One afternoon, as she walked through a community center bustling with activity, a little girl tugged at her sleeve. "Are you the lady who started all this?" the child asked, pointing to the volunteers handing out meals. Emily knelt down, smiling. "I helped, but lots of people worked together to make it happen." The girl beamed. "Thank you. My mom says we wouldn't have eaten today without you." Tears pricked Emily's eyes as she hugged the girl tightly. In that moment, she realized how much her life had transformed. Not just for herself, but for others too. Later that evening, Emily stood on her apartment balcony, looking out over the city lights. She thought about the diner, Mr. Grayson's harsh words, and the fear of losing everything. But instead of sadness, she felt gratitude. If not for those struggles, she might never have crossed paths with Adrian or discovered the strength within herself. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "How's the boss life treating you?" Emily chuckled and typed back, "Better than I ever imagined." As she set her phone down, she whispered to the night sky, "Kindness always finds its way back." And with that, Emily smiled, ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing she'd already proven that even the smallest acts of compassion could lead to the biggest opportunities.